Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders What podcast. Today, for this episode, I've honestly lost track of what number this is, probably in the mid 250s, 255, 256, in that range. I'm talking today with another wonderful, inspiring, not just an inspiring, empowering, but also someone with a truly goosebump-inducing story, and that is my new friend Valerie Arbeau from Calgary, Canada. Tropical Calgary, I might want to say and add. And I used to live not far in Edmonton, and I know weather can be quite wild. Let's put it that way. Up there. And yeah, she's originally from the UK. She moved to Canada, and again, her story started with a bang. She met her husband within the first week of landing in Canada, and of all places, not at a bar, not at a club, but at church. That's where the magic happens. And that was back in 1988, and they just celebrated their 31st anniversary. So God bless both of you. And as I said, to your next 3,000 years. All right. And so they've been married for 31 years, 2 kids. And she's also taking care of a child with cerebral palsy and helping her to strive despite her condition. And this is something she's also doing. She's very passionate as a result of that. She's looking for help, looking for parents to help them hear her stories so that they can also learn from her. She's working with parents, helping moms with kids with special needs to live with intention and embrace the journey. And also she works with, she's been a physical therapist for 30 plus years. So she's been in the business. She knows what to do. She's a true expert, and she has a powerful story. And one thing about her that I really love, on top of all of that, which encompasses some of the things that I've been doing, and that is her shine approach to everything she does, which is S stands for say yes to self, H stands for have faith in something that is greater than you, I for inspiration, N for nutrition, E for exercise. So a lot that we will have to unpack. And my little pinky is telling me that this might be not just a one episode, but a few episodes, because there's so much we can talk. But anyways, without any further ado, Valerie, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. So before we start, first question first. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. I am doing well. It's been a great day. I was out in the garden helping with some yard work at my daughter's house, my older daughter's house. And so, yeah, so it's always good to kind of get your hands in the dirt and making things look pretty.
Absolutely. So, and being in the garden close to nature is one of the best ways to do so. I love that as well. So before we start, for people who don't know you, we're going to talk about your business, your incredible, how you help other people out there. But first and foremost, as a person, as a human being, as a woman, who's Valerie?
Valerie is, I was just talking to someone the other day, and I said to them, it's really hard to sell yourself. And she said, you're not selling yourself, you're celebrating yourself. So I'm like, okay, I like that reframe. So in celebration of myself, I am a woman of passion. I want people to understand who they are and to be able to live to their potential and to be able to make a difference in the world, to make a difference in their community, in their sphere of influence. And I just want to empower people to live with intention and embrace the journey of whatever life may throw at them. Things are not always what we want, and we don't always get everything that we dream of, but we can make the most of what we do have. And I just want to empower people to be able to do that.
Beautiful. And one thing that I absolutely love that I took note, I wrote down, and that would be also t-shirt worthy. And that is you're not selling, you're celebrating yourself. I love that. I love that. So always learning new things. Awesome. I don't know if you remember last time we talked, I told you what kind of conversation I like to have on my podcast. But just to the gist of it, sure, we're going to talk about your business and your achievement and all that. But what I really want to know first and foremost is have a look under the hood, so to speak, to see what's in your heart, to see who's Valerie as a person, as a human being, first and foremost, before the businesswoman. Because what is business at the base? It's not a numbers game. Sure, numbers matter, but ultimately it's a relationship nurturing process.
Yes.
If we don't connect with a person heart to heart, human to human, we don't care who they are. We don't care how many PhDs they have. We're not going to talk to them, let alone do business with them. So this is why the emphasis of my podcast is about getting to know the person, as a human being, heart to heart. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So to start, first of all, I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you. First of all, tell us, what makes you happy as a person?
I think making other people happy. I love to see people enjoying life. I love to see people smile. I remember when my youngest was a baby, it took a lot to get her to smile with her disabilities. She did not smile easy. And that took quite a few months to have her understand what a smile was and learn to smile. So that's always been sort of my mission, is to be pleasant and polite and to have people feel comfortable and to have people feel joy and to be able to experience that in my presence as well.
Beautiful. What makes you smile?
Smile. Sunshine. I love sunflowers. I love being outdoors and I love seeing my kids laugh.
So if you love the sunshine, love the outdoor, what the hell did you choose to live in Calgary? You must be seeing
Long
sun
story
like
for
2 weeks
another
a year,
time.
That is
Yes, I know my background is Caribbean and I often do wonder, why am I not in the Caribbean? I was totally built for the Caribbean.
exactly. Now, let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your heart sing? What makes your soul come alive?
I guess the biggest thing is having a relationship with my Heavenly Father,
Mm,
spending time with Him. Joy is found at the presence of His feet, studying the Bible. And I'm fortunate that I have a husband of faith as well. So we're able to study the Bible together. That's something that we do every morning. And we pray together every morning and every night. So that connection with God, but able to have that with my husband as well. And together we can have a connection with God. That makes my heart sing.
beautiful. Love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Seeing people being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. What scares you?
That I can't protect my children the way I want to protect my children.
Yes, absolutely. What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
I would say I'm a Barnabas. So
Mm,
Barnabas in the Bible was the word means, his name means encourager. And that's what Barnabas was. He was an encourager. So I would
cheerleader.
like to say that's probably one of my big superpowers,
Like
encouraging others.
like a cheerleader. Yes, I'm the same.
Yes,
Beautiful. Awesome. Now, you like traveling, right?
I do. I do.
Now, I know we can do an entire episode just on traveling. We might do that in the future, but now I want to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory line. Go back to
Okay.
when you were growing up. You know, when we're kids, people around us, parents, relatives, teachers, neighbors, friends ask us, so Valerie, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer as a little girl to that question?
As a little girl, to be honest, I don't remember, but I do know by the time I got to about 13, so my mid-teens, I knew that I wanted to work with people, helping them to move, to be healthy. And so I found a pamphlet when I went to a career convention, and it had a basketball player on the front. That's what attracted me to it. And as I read about it, it was remedial gymnastics, which is sort of therapists working with people to help rehabilitate them, to get them functional so that they're moving well, that their muscles are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they're strengthening, that they've got the range of motion. And so that was like, wow, I can do that. I think that really resonates with me. So that's what I did. I pursued that career. And my first year, actually, once we completed that first year, we merged with physiotherapy. So that's how I ended up graduating as a physiotherapist, or for my American friends, physical therapist.
Beautiful. Growing up, What was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
I actually enjoyed school. I was one of the few that really enjoyed school. I never took a day off school. A lot of my peers were skipping school. It never occurred to me because I actually enjoyed learning.
Beautiful. What was your favorite subject in school?
Physical education,
Any specific sport?
basketball,
How tall are you?
but I'm 5'8.5". But I must say that in school, I actually played netball because I was raised in England. And when I went to college, that's when I learned to play basketball. So netball, very similar to basketball, except you can't move with the ball, you can't dribble. It's more sort of passing the ball and shooting at a smaller net than a basketball net.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that. Okay. Wow. What would you say was your least favorite subject in school?
Probably math. I did struggle with math, although I loved algebra. I with algebra, but that's what got me through passing my exams.
Why math? Was it because of a teacher that turned you off, or was it because you just numbers just put you to sleep?
Wasn't necessarily the teachers. I think some of the concepts I just had a hard time grasping. But as I say, algebra, no problem with that one.
Okay. Yes, for sure. I'm with you on that. Also, for me, I wasn't a fan of math. The teacher put me off, and after that, I had a hard time catching up. But yeah.
Hmm.
Now, imagine that we were in the same class, say in grade 10, grade 11. What kind of student, what kind of person were you? Were you the life of the class, the clown, the nerd, the shy one, the what kind of person, what kind of girl, what kind of classmates were you back then?
I would say studious, but also fun loving.
Mm. Were you popular with the boys?
Do you know, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I didn't actually date in school because I grew up in a white neighborhood and blacks and whites didn't date.
Mm. That was in England.
Yes.
Which part?
I grew up in the Northwest, so a place called Lancaster.
Close to Manchester and Newcastle?
Yes. So just north of Manchester, about an hour and a half north of Manchester.
I'm noticing an interesting trend with you is that you love living in the most amazing tropical, the best weather type of places. Eh? Am I right or right?
I didn't have a choice growing up. That's where my
I
parents
know.
landed.
So what is the best? Which one would you rather live in the northwest of England, weather-wise, or in Calgary?
Calgary, hands down. Yeah, I
Really?
love the yes, because the sunshine. There's so much more sunshine. There's more days of sunshine in Calgary, Alberta, than there is in the northwest of England where I was raised. It's dreary a lot of the time. It
Yeah.
rains quite a bit.
How cold does it get in that part of England?
Not very cold. I never grew up on a lake to skate because it doesn't get that cold to freeze the ponds or the lakes or the rivers or anything. So it doesn't get that cold. And snow, maybe a sprinkle in at Christmas, and then it melts within the same day.
So for people who have no idea, never been to Calgary, tell us, how cold does it really get?
We can have usually about a week to 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. It seemed like a little bit longer this last year. We can get down to -30 and beyond.
What is -30 in layman's term?
It's cold.
You know, the way
Oh,
I took
-30. Sorry. And we are in Celsius for my American
Fahrenheit
friends.
is, the way I try to get to give people an idea is say, next time you go to your kitchen, open your freezer. Freezer's -15. Imagine something twice, if not three times colder. That's you get in
Right.
Toronto and Canada sometimes. And leave
Yeah.
your hand inside, see how long you can last. If you can last over a minute, then you're qualified to go to Canada in the winter. You're eligible. You're prepared, equipped.
Yes, one way to get acclimatized.
Absolutely, absolutely. Beautiful. Now, what was your very first job? And do you remember how much you were getting paid for that first job?
Oh, I don't remember the amount, but I remember my first job. My mom had my brother, so there's a number of years between my brother and I. There's 13 years between my brother and I. And when my mom had my brother, she was in the hospital with another lady who was
Mm,
having her son, her first son, and she had holiday flats. So we lived very close to a seaside resort. And so she had me helping her change over the sheets and clean up for the next set of people coming in once people had left. So that was my very first job.
you remember how much you were making for that first job?
Oh, probably peanuts. I don't honestly remember, but it was probably maybe, honestly, I really don't know because
Mm.
13, when I was 13, that was a
Oh,
long
yeah.
time ago.
Mhm. Yes. Now, let's move forward. How would you describe your path from the moment you left school to now? Would you say it was pretty much smooth sailing once you're into one lane, you were set for life? Or was it more like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
The latter, for sure. Yeah.
Tell us more
I don't
about
know too many people. I don't know too many people that have a
Yeah.
straightforward path. I was definitely not one of them. In my mind, yes, but in reality, not so much.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, in honesty, it would be quite boring to have a very predictable, safe type of lifestyle. Sure, the rocky can be rocky at times, but makes it much more interesting, much more fun, much more rewarding, you know?
Absolutely.
So tell us about your path from the moment you left school to now.
I left high school. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate with all the grades that I needed. I'd had, sorry, I had to think there for a second. In England, we called it glandular fever. Here, I think in North America, they call it mono. So I
Okay.
had that and I was pretty sick. I was sick for over a month and lost a ton of weight. And I've always been on the slight side, so I really couldn't afford to lose all that weight. But I remember it being so painful and feeling really, really sick. So that was just before I was supposed to write my exams. So consequently, I didn't do as well. So then, so that was another changing path because, I was going to graduate with high marks and go on to college. So I had to go and redo that last year and redo all those exams. So I went to a college, like a local college, in my area, and then from there I went on to do home economics. I do love to cook, and so that was the first time I actually left my hometown. Excuse me, to go and do that. And so that was a 2-year course, I remember. So that was fun. Learned to do cooking demonstrations and learned to cook. I remember, never forget this, making a Victoria sponge cake by hand and literally mixing it with my hand. So that was one of the things that they had us do. From there, I went on to do physiotherapy. I didn't get there again. My path was not straight. I applied. I didn't get in that first year. I was totally bummed out. And I went to see a career counselor and she said, why don't you apply again? Because I was not going to apply again. Well, if they didn't want me the first time, I'm not going to bother trying again. But she convinced me to apply for this second time and I got in. So then I went on and did I think it was 3 years, that particular physiotherapy training, and did that. And then after I graduated, I went to work at the local hospital. Well, actually, it was a hospital that was maybe 15, 20 miles away from where I did my training. And I wasn't there that long before I had an opportunity to go to Canada.
So
And
speaking of that,
that's, I was,
okay, Canada. Okay, so you just answered my question, which was what took you to Canada? So you told us about it. So how was tell us back to the first day you landed in Canada. What were your first impressions?
I arrived at night. It was the 29th of November. It was minus 11. It was the first time in my life the hairs in my nostrils had ever frozen. I remember thinking, this is cold. What am I doing here? What was I thinking? But there you go.
Was that in Calgary or in Toronto or where?
No, I landed in St. John, New Brunswick.
Oh, wow.
That was where my first job was.
Did you have any family, friends, relatives in Canada or nobody?
Nobody.
And what were your family back home in the UK think of? What the hell is she gonna do in Canada? Not get a job right here.
I think my mum was probably quite concerned. I'm the oldest of five, so I was the first one to kind of leave the nest. So I think she was pretty concerned. And here I was, single woman, moving to a whole new country where I knew nobody, nobody knew me, and I was coming to experience adventure.
So when you landed at -11, you thought that's cold, but when I'm pretty sure the local people told you, wow, that is pretty warm actually. That is just a balm sea, uh, fall day in here in Canada.
Right. And I actually landed in St. John, New Brunswick. So the winters back then when I landed
Oh yeah.
were harsh, harsh,
Oh yeah.
lots and lots of snow. And the one thing that became evident very quickly was that I did not have suitable clothing. So I
Don't
had
tell
to
me you
go
landed up with
shopping.
a t-shirt and a skirt or a shirt or a short, you know?
Yes, so I quickly had to go shopping to get at the outerwear. My coat was not even close to being warm enough. So
I know a guy from Brazil. He came to Toronto back in November, and mind you, in Brazil, November is the equivalent of May for us. It's the start of the, you know,
oh
it's
yes.
warm. He showed up literally with a t-shirt, short, and flip flop in Toronto, mid-November. Even the people look at him. What's wrong with you, brother? Let us say that his first introduction, as soon as he left the airport, was not the best.
I
First
could probably
himself, yeah. It's probably a miracle how he made it to his place without freezing to death, but he learned a valuable lesson.
yes.
Wow. All right. Now tell us more now about. Oh, there's so many more things I want to ask you. You said you met your husband the first weekend. Sorry, the first week in Canada. How did that happen?
Well, we were at church. We met at church. I remember going to the church and his mom said hello because I was very visible, one of three Black people in the church. So very visible, newcomer. And I remember his mom coming over and introducing herself, and she introduced Scott to me as well. And that's how we first met. Now, I was not interested. I just landed. I was not interested in meeting anybody as far as getting romantically involved with anybody. So I was out for adventure. I was here to see what there was to see, meet who there was to meet, see what there was to see.
You guys met back in Newfoundland and St. John. Okay, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Hmm. And then tell us about so you said you spent 30 years as a physiotherapist. What was the one thing that you really enjoyed the most working in that field that made you stay in that field for 30 years?
I think the biggest thing is the fact that it's so diverse and varied. You can work with people from neonatals, so preemies, all the way to your geriatrics. And you can work with them in a hospital setting, you can work in a community setting. So I just love the fact that it's a career that you can go down many different avenues. So there really is no need to be bored because you can totally move from one field to the next field to another field. And then the other thing is that you can work anywhere in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow. So speaking of working around the world, have you been able to work in other countries doing what you love doing?
It's mainly being between England and Canada, the two places that I've worked.
Okay. So tell us now about, you mentioned your business, Shine business. Tell us more about that.
So I got into coaching just over 2 to 3 years ago now. And I've always loved being a physiotherapist. I still enjoy being a physiotherapist, but there's only so much you can do as a physiotherapist when it comes to sharing your faith. So I work for a hospital organization, Alberta Health Services, and with any big organization, you're not necessarily able to share your faith. So working with people where I could share my faith was kind of like I think I could get into that. And I love the fact that physiotherapy, there's a lot of things in physiotherapy that you can carry over into coaching, being a motivator, being an encourager, creating action plans, all of those kind of things that we do in physio can kind of carry over to coaching as well. So I love the fact with the coaching that you get to spend, depending on how long the program is, you could spend quite a bit of time with a client and see them progress and see them move forward and see them achieve their goals and realize their dreams. And that's, I find, is really exciting.
For sure, for sure. And then you mentioned that you also have been raising your daughter with special needs, cerebral palsy. First of all, tell us, what is cerebral palsy?
Cerebral palsy means that there's been an insult to the brain. So there's been a lack of oxygen getting to the brain. So depending on which part of the brain has been, oh, sorry. Depending on which part of the brain has been impacted will determine to what extent the disability will be. So for my child, it was, this is my oldest, what happened was the brainstem, which has a big need for oxygen. The oxygen supply was cut off. And so that was the part of her brain that, for want of a better phrase, died. So she has a hard time with coordination. She has a hard time, she cannot swallow. So the brainstem is kind of like the powerhouse or the relay station for all the other functions of the brain, you know, organizing the muscles to work and the nerves to do what they need to do, sensation, all of that kind of thing.
So is that something that, what causes it? Is this something that you inherit, or is it something that caused by accidents? By what causes it?
Usually it can happen in utero or it can happen
Oh,
outside of utero. So it basically is a lack of oxygen supply to the brain is usually what it is. So for me, what had happened, the umbilical cord came out first. So that was pinched, cut off some of the oxygen supply to my daughter's brain. And that's what happened in our case. And then sometimes as a child is being born, coming through the birth canal, there can be an accident or incident during that time phrase as well that can cause damage to the brain.
and is there any ways to reverse that, or to help restore that oxygen intake so the person can function normal again?
Depending on how much of incident has occurred, there is treatment. It didn't work for, well, we weren't offered it in our case, but I have heard of hyperbaric oxygen chambers where you can put a child in there and just kind of really bombard them with oxygen and try to sort of help restore some of that. But again, it will depend on how much damage has been done. And in our case, it was severe, so we weren't, as I say, it wasn't offered for us. In fact, they thought that our child was going to pass away. They didn't think that our child would make it over the weekend. Yeah.
Wow. So nowadays, you said she's 21.
Yes. Total miracle.
Absolutely. So what is she currently today not able to do that a normal person would be able to do?
Melody Ann is her name, and Melody Ann is totally dependent for all care. So she's not able to do anything for herself. She can roll over in bed. She can commando style crawl. If we pop her in a walker where she has truncal support, she can move her legs to move herself around independently. But to do purposeful movement, it's difficult for her. She has no fine motor, very little fine motor. And she can raise her arms up to give us a hug, but it's not
Oh,
sustained.
so sweet.
Yes, it is lovely. It is lovely. She can, on command, she can lift her legs, but again, it's not something that is really functional for her. So she doesn't walk. She's wheelchair bound. She
Okay.
doesn't eat. She has a G-tube because she can't coordinate the muscles in her mouth to swallow. And she's not able to speak. So she uses a communication device.
Oh, wow. So, one thing that I realized since having my awakening over the past 3 years is that, nothing happens to you, it happens for us, to help us grow to the next level. And there's always a beautiful gift, a beautiful lesson to learn to anything, even to the hardest of challenges, the tragedy, through heartbreak, anything. So you're looking at 21 years of taking care of this very special child. What is a lesson? What has been the lesson for you to learn? What has been the number one lesson that you had to learn to going through that? Because I can imagine, I cannot even imagine how challenging that must have been. So
Mm.
what would you say, what was that trying to teach you? What is the number one lesson you learned through that from a spiritual perspective?
From a spiritual perspective, it taught me dependence on something that's greater than myself.
Mm,
Because doing total care for a child is hard work. We made it work into our routine because we had to. And Melody Ann is our oldest, our firstborn. So we didn't know any different. We just kind of went with it. But relying on for strength, for help, for wisdom, relying on someone that's greater than myself was huge. And as I mentioned earlier, having my husband in the same camp where we both could worship together, pray together, and work together with this child was huge for us. You do go through, I have to say, we went through as most parents would. Why did this have to happen to us? But one of the things that we decided early on in Melody Ann's life was, if people can learn from our journey, if we can help somebody on their journey because of our experience, then we're all about sharing it. And that's what we've done.
wow, beautiful. Another thing that I learned is that we all go through our fair share of, pain points, tragedy, heartbreaks, struggles. Sure, there are a lot when we go to them, but then they become our story. Our story becomes our gift. Then our gift becomes our duty and responsibility. Like this life, sure, it's a school. We all come here to learn lessons, to grow, to become better. But that's only 10% of the real reason we are here. The 90% is taking those gifts, those wisdoms, this knowledge, and share it with others who can all collectively rise, collectively benefit. And you've been blessed with an incredible gift, incredible responsibility to really help other people. Do you see it that way, that this is an incredible gift, a blessing in
Absolutely.
disguise?
Absolutely. When I look back on Melody Ann's life, she has brought so much joy to so many people. She has a beautiful smile. And she has brought so much joy. And when we look back and see how many people she has impacted, we have been blessed that God has allowed us to see who she's impacted. And we probably will never know the amount of people she's impacted, but the ones that we are aware of, that brings us so much joy. We've seen people move into the field of working with people with special needs because of Melody Ann. We've been able to start a camp for kids using communication devices. So that started in 2016, and we partnered with the University of Alberta and March of Dimes. And we've been able to provide an annual camp since 2016. Even during COVID, the camp pivoted and we did virtual for 2 years. So that was amazing. And it's just been a blessing to see other parents come to the realization, hey, if I want to communicate with my kid, I can. And using a communication device, I don't have to be scared of the device. I can use it and I can communicate with my child. We had one, I think it was the first year we had the camp, and one mom came up and she said, I have been so scared to touch my child's device, but because of this camp, I'm going home now knowing that I can communicate with my child using their device. And that was just like, this is why we do what we do. And that was just a beautiful, beautiful testimony to I guess, a tribute to my child, because we wouldn't have done this camp if it wasn't for Melody Ann.
So many questions came to mind, but the one I want to ask you is, You mentioned it blessed your life. Melody Ann brought so much joy and love, not only for you, but for other people around you. How has this also strengthened your marriage, your love between you and your husband? Because you have something in common to work together that's
Yes,
way bigger than you two individually, but also you two collectively, is bringing you back. Hey, we're in this together, so to speak. You know?
absolutely. Yeah. We are blessed, and I believe it's because of our faith that we've been able
Mm,
to weather the storm, so to speak, because
sure.
the statistics don't look great for many families where they have a child with special needs within it. A lot of people can't handle it. A lot of people just it is stressful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It is stressful. But I think because my husband and I, one, we are on the same page on a lot of things. When we were pregnant with Melody Ann, we discussed a lot of things about how we were going to raise our child, our values, and all of that kind of stuff. So it was easy enough when we had Melody Ann to actually be on the same page. I think another factor, Payman, is that we're both in the healthcare field.
Oh,
My
okay.
husband is a nurse and I'm the physical therapist. So we are used to being around, both of us have been in intensive care unit. We've worked with the whole gamut of people. So naturally, caring comes to both of us. And working together as a team, this brought us very close together. Melody Ann is a child that needs to be scheduled. So there's medications, we have to change her, we have to change her position. So there's lots of things that are scheduled. So that I think helped having that routine, having that scheduling so that we could then work together. We got it. The routine in the morning was brutal to get her ready for school, but we got it down pat and we worked together as a team. So because we had to work together as a team, because we have our faith, and because we loved our child, and we still do so much, that's what made it easier for us to be able to continue along this journey that's very challenging.
Absolutely. At what point did you guys realize, not just realize, but understood that, hey, this is not a curse, so to speak, but actually a beautiful blessing that
Mm.
it's here for both of you and the family, is opportunity to grow together way beyond that anything else before. When did you understood that, hey, this is a gift, so to speak, and not a curse?
I would say probably when Melody Ann was still very young, still a
Mm,
toddler, because we were only given a year. Her
oh, wow.
prognosis was 1 year. So when we had her first birthday, it was like boulders had just been dropped off our backs. And then the realization as we realized her cognitive ability, it was like, wow, she actually knows colors. She knows numbers. She learned all those concrete things that usually toddlers usually learn. And so when she started showing us that she could learn things and she was absorbing her environment, that was kind of like, okay, well, let's just raise the bar. Let's see what else she can do. And so I think that at that point, and I would say she was probably between 18 months and two, in around that phase where we just thought, you know what, she's going to do great things. She's going to do great things.
Absolutely. I'm convinced of that. How have you guys been able to ensure that she gets proper education?
The education piece was tough because Melody Ann has so many challenges. She's G-tube fed in the wheelchair, not able to help with anything. So she actually went to a school. Well, let me say, we moved to Nova Scotia during kindergarten. So she was held back a year and then started kindergarten when she was 6. She actually went to a typical school. And that was beautiful to see. Children are so curious and they have no inhibitions and they're not shy about coming up and saying hello. So it was a very beautiful experience for me as a mom to watch other kids wheeling Melody Ann around in a wheelchair, running alongside her when they were doing laps around the gym, coming up and talking to her. And so that was very beautiful for us. Then we moved back to Calgary because we were recognizing that in Nova Scotia, and nothing against Nova Scotia, but they just don't have the same resources for the school systems as they do here in Alberta. So we came back so that Melody Ann would have an opportunity to speak and use a communication device. So that was one of the reasons we came back to Calgary, because both my husband and I are ocean people and we loved being by the ocean. But for us, it was more important for Melody Ann to have the
Sure.
best quality of life. So,
Mhm.
so we came back, and Melody Ann then went to a specialized school. So it was a school for children with special needs, and she was in a specialized class that worked with kids using communication devices. And then she went to the high school equivalent of that when she was graduated from the elementary portion. So education wise, Melody Ann just has a certificate of education. So Melody Ann is not able to do like complicated things like regular kids would do. She did learn to add and subtract. She did learn she can spell, but it's just the basics that she has. And for her world, because she's also, we didn't realize this initially, this came much later. Melody Ann is also on the spectrum. So Melody Ann is not able to do things necessarily on command, and things tend to be on her terms, but she's lovely with it.
Wow. So many questions come to mind. I mean, if I were to ask every question came to mind, would be here till next week. So, how are you using this beautiful gift to make an impact around you?
We, as I mentioned, we started the camp, and we have just been so blessed that we've been able to sustain it. A number of years ago in Calgary, a camp was called Many Voices. It was started for children using communication devices, but I believe this was before we moved to Calgary, and I believe it probably ran for about 3 years or around that. And so when we started our camp, we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable. And so that's why we invited the University of Alberta to join us. And then it was suggested to us that we invite March of Dimes to join as well. And so that's one of the ways that we've been able to create impact. Another way that we've created impact is I've been part of a volunteer. I've been a volunteer for parents of kids with special needs through the Alberta Children's Hospital here in Calgary. And so being able to chat with other mums that are on a similar journey, to be able to share what's happened for us, to be able to encourage other mums, just to be able to sort of advise, guide, suggest. So that's been a blessing as well. And then the other one that's been huge for us is that we actually set Melody Ann up in her forever home. So our family home in one part of Calgary, in the southwest of Calgary, is now Melody Ann's forever home. And we've been able to
Oh,
get 2 other young ladies to live with her that have disabilities. And then we have an agency that provide care, 24-hour care for the 3 ladies. So for us, blessings throughout. Melody Ann gets to be independent, as do the other 2 young ladies, as independent as they can be, living independently with their parents. The other thing is we'd be able to create a workplace for, I think there's 13 staff that work there around the clock. And we've been able to create a home, and we have been blessed in the fact that the three ladies that live there, all of them come from a Christian background. Most of the staff that work there come from a Christian background. So we still have that Christian feel in our home, which is very important for us.
sure.
So yeah, and one of the things is there's not that many places that will facilitate people in a wheelchair. And so we have 2 young ladies in a wheelchair and one that's able to walk still.
Beautiful. How has faith, what kind of role has faith played in helping you cope with that?
Ooh, well, we called it Eden House, Melody Ann's place. Getting Eden House set up was a huge leap of faith. We were navigating with the government of Alberta for funding. We were blessed to be partnered with Options, which is the name of the agency, and the president at the time is a mum of a child with special needs. He has since passed, but she understood. She knew where we were coming from. She wore the t-shirt. So she was able to help us navigate to get Eden House started, but it was not an easy feat. Lots of negotiations with the government. We were told it's not going to happen, and we had to step out in faith. I remember it was March We had bought the house that my husband and I live in with our youngest child, but we didn't know if there was funding coming from the government to fund Melody Ann's place, Eden House. So I remember us thinking, so do we move into the house that we've just bought, or do we rent that out and stay where we are, because we don't know if we're going to get money for people to come in and help Melody Ann? And it was a real test of faith. We stopped, we looked back and decided that, how has God led in the past? So we were able to look back and see how God had opened door after door after door to create Eden House. The fact that we have the house that we're in is truly a miracle. The house that we're in was owned by a couple, and their son, they had passed away. Their son lived in Ontario. And the realtor said to us, why don't you write him a letter and just explain that you can't buy the house right now, that you would need an extension for the possession date, and just explain. So she knew what she was, but I had no idea. So it turns out that the son of the couple that owned the house that we're currently in, he has a child with special needs. So he understood what we were trying to do for Melody Ann and why we needed this space that we're currently in. And then the other thing was another miracle. We had to furnish 2 houses. So when we bought this house, there was a whole bunch of furniture left in here. So we truly believe that it was definitely a faith journey. It was definitely a faith building journey, and God came through in mighty ways.
Absolutely. A very hypothetical question now. Imagine if God did not bless you with Melody Ann. How would you think your life would have been different in terms of spiritual growth, impact, fulfillment? I'm not talking about the physical side, in that aspect.
It would be likely very different. I believe that the depth of our relationship with God is definitely deeper than it would have been. I know when Melody Ann was first born, it was very hard because I was 7 years trying to get pregnant. I had a beautiful pregnancy. I just carried all in front. I didn't gain any weight. I didn't even throw up. And God would really bless the pregnancy. I just was glowing. It was the closest I'd ever been to God, because I felt like Sarah. And, he had blessed me with a child in my older age. I was 38 when I had Melody Ann. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful time. And it was hard when Melody Ann was born. I have to be honest, my faith hit rock bottom. But because I've climbed back up, the thread that kept me going was, we initially only thought we had Melody Ann for a year. So I wanted her to know who Jesus Christ was. So we did her worship every day. We prayed with her every day. And that was the thread that kept me going until I was ready to be able to build my own relationship again. And I believe because of that, it's now, as I said, it's now at a depth that I probably would never have imagined. And it's not been easy with the trials that we've been through for Melody Ann, and also our younger child. Our younger child has ADHD. And then last summer, we found out that they are also on the spectrum. So, you kind of go through that. Really, we didn't have enough with one child. But again, it's that God is just teaching us, trust me. And we're believing that our journey will help other people along their own journey.
Absolutely. What does it mean when you said they're on the spectrum?
Autism. Yes. So both of them have an element of autism.
Okay.
And it never occurred to us that there could be a dual diagnosis. With Melody Ann, we were just focused in on the cerebral palsy and trying to make sure that her limbs were moving and she didn't get contractures, things, her joints tightening up. And so it never occurred to us. And I think it was a speech language pathologist that was working with Melody Ann. And I would say Melody Ann was probably maybe 8 or 9. And she said to us, have you ever considered Melody Ann being on the spectrum? And then when we stepped back and looked at it, from Melody Ann being a young child to that point, right. So all the little flags were sort of like coming up for us. And then it was the same with our youngest child. We had education, psychoeducational evaluation done, which we postponed until they were in grade 11, just in readiness for them going on to further education. And after the first assessment with our second one, the psychologist said, "Oh, have you ever considered this child being on the spectrum?" And it was like, "Nope." But then when we step back and look back, it was like, "Oh yeah, yes, now we see it. Now we see it." But when you're in the trenches, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So again, our journey, if we can help somebody else along theirs, from what we've learned and from what our experience has been, we're all over that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us now about your business of coaching other moms with children with special needs.
Yes. So that's part of the reason why I came into coaching, is because I wanted to be
Mm,
able to help other mums recognize that it can be about them. As a mother, most good mothers, it's all about their kids, and they put themselves on the back burner and they don't recognize that they need to take care of themselves. So it's very important, I've learned over the years, to take care of me, because if I'm not taking care of me, nobody else is. And if I'm not taking care of me, I can't really take care of my kids to the full potential. So helping other mums to recognize that, because when your head is in the trenches, you're just surviving. You're honestly sometimes just surviving. You're just getting through the day. But what I would love for other mums to recognize and understand is it can be about you. You can have your dreams. You can plan your future, and you can plan the future for your child. And for us creating Eden House for Melody Ann, we thought that we would be taking care of Melody Ann till we died. We're not sure what her life expectancy will be. We're just blessed that every day is a gift. So we don't take any of it for granted. But a lot of mums and a lot of parents just feel like they're going to be taking care of their kids ad infinitum. But for us setting up Eden House for Melody Ann, it just has given us so much hope so we can be parents. Because before, I was the person that was doing all the HR stuff. So I was putting out the ads, I was doing the interviews, I was doing all the payroll, I was doing the training, plus trying to be a wife and a mother to both of my children, maintain our home, go to work. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I just want mums to also recognize that you can plan the future for your child. And it's so nice for Scott and I just to be able to go to visit Melody Ann and just be mom and dad. I don't have to think about, oh, when does she need to be changed? I don't have to think about, oh, does she need some time out of her wheelchair? I don't have to think about, is it time to feed her? When are her meds due? I don't have to think about any of that kind of stuff. We can just go and just be parents and just enjoy her.
So how do you structure your daily routine around, I mean, not just you, but both you and your husband? How do you structure your day? Do you take turns, like the morning you take care of her, afternoon he does, and vice versa? Or is it just whoever's ready, whatever?
No, when we were, because now Melody Ann is living in a home without us. She's independent of us now. But when we were all living together, Scott and I worked together to do it because it's too much for one person. So for Melody Ann, because she had lung issues, her routine in the morning was pretty extensive. It was getting her washed, getting her changed, getting her up into giving her chest physio. She had chest physio twice a day. So we would do the chest physio, get her up into her chair, have to brush her teeth, give her a feed, give her her meds. We would have worship with her every morning. We'd stretch her legs. So all of this was before she got on the school bus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how long would all
Yes.
of that take? What time were you guys waking up?
We had to get up by 6, and we would be starting Melody Ann's routine by about 6:30. And then
Okay.
she would be getting on the bus about 7:30. Yeah. So it took us, I'm fortunately for Scott, I'm an organized person, very much, I work well with routines.
Okay.
So as long as he had instruction and direction, he did really well, but we worked together really well, and we got it down pat so that we could kind of, if we could whip up her routine in less time.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Uh, what else? There's so many things. So for your business, helping other parents, especially moms with kids with special needs, how are you getting your client? How are you getting the word out?
Well, I am using Facebook groups. I
Mm,
am talking to mums that I know in my community because we've had Melody Ann for 21 years. So there's in my local area, there's a lot of mums that I know through our camp. There's a lot of moms that are coming through our camp because all of them have children with special needs. And so those are some of the avenues that I'm using to reach moms.
beautiful. Share with us
There's
an
also,
sorry, go ahead.
so I was just going to say there's also organizations as well, like the Cerebral Palsy organization, autism organization. So there's those opportunities as well.
So do you work with parents mostly within Calgary, Alberta, Canada, North America, or worldwide?
I haven't had any worldwide yet, but I'm certainly open for it, depending on the time zone.
Sure.
But yes, most of it has been local, but I am looking to sort of expand that. And I do have a lot of people in this United States as well that I'm collaborating with. So
Share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
let me see. I think one that was really heartfelt was having sessions with this one mom who has two children with disabilities as well, but they're not visible disabilities. And she is a stay-at-home mom. So her identity is wrapped up in being a mom, being a housewife, and providing for her family in as much as all the emotional nurturing and that kind of thing, making sure that the environment is taken care of, that there's good food to eat, etc., etc. So that was where her identity was wrapped up in. And it was interesting, and it took a little while to help her recognize that it can be about her. And I remember there was more than one session where she would be in tears,
Wow,
just and just having that realization and having the permission for it to be about her.
beautiful.
Yeah. And then the other thing as part of that as well, it brought up past trauma for her as well, which was outside of my scope. So I did refer her on to deal with that. But yeah, so that was near and dear to my heart, just to see that transformation and just to see her now be able to leave her kids to be able to go and do something with just her and her husband, and to, this was the biggest thing, have her kids help her in the home.
Yes, 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 yes. Wow, beautiful. Wow, that's powerful. What a conversation. I knew this would be an amazing one, but wow, I'm still, one thing I really love about my podcast is that I keep to talk with incredible people, inspiring people, empowering people with goosebump inducing stories. And in the process, I get to learn not only about things I thought I knew, but learn about things I absolutely no idea even existed. Like, for example, cerebral palsy, before talking to you, I had vaguely heard about it, but I didn't know what it really is, what it really meant. And it's one of the things I really enjoy the most about the podcast. Learning, it's part of my own ongoing education, but also, you know, providing a platform for people like you with incredible stories, not just inspiring, empowering, because we all have inspiring and empowering stories, but people who have truly goosebump inducing stories to really share it out there. Because this is why, as I said earlier, we are to take our gifts and share them with the world to whatever means makes more sense. For me, it's through speaking. Someone else, it might be through writing. Another one to be through music, dancing, painting, sculpture, whatever way it is, whatever way is more natural for you, is express your gift and share them with others. So this is something I'm truly blessed, truly enjoy, because I've been able to find my voice, find what really I want to do. And it's beautiful once you realize it, because listen, it's incredibly fun to be talking all day with people like you. Seriously, I love what I'm doing. I have to pinch myself. Seriously, it's beautiful. Awesome. Now, as I said, we can talk for hours and hours, and we'll probably do a part two in the next few weeks, or even maybe sooner than that. But let's start to wrap this up. And to finish, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. Ready?
Sure.
Okay, what would you say has been so far the best piece of advice that you've received?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
Absolutely. And the worst?
Everything's going to be okay.
Really?
Because it depends how you define okay.
Hmm.
Whoever's saying that to you, their okay might be very different to what your okay is.
Or maybe they have no idea because they've never walked your shoes. They just say that just to be nice and polite.
Yes.
Wow. Beautiful. Imagine that you were blessed with a time machine and can go back in time and sit face to face with 18-year-old Valerie. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Don't procrastinate. Just go after your dreams.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And what's the number one piece of advice you've been giving to Melanie Ann?
I tell her whenever I see her that she's my favorite big girl. And I tell her to keep smiling.
Absolutely. Love that. Do you have your own podcast yet?
I'm working on it.
All right. Curious, what's the number one reason that's for which you haven't started your podcast yet?
Because I only just thought about it a few weeks ago.
Okay. Everything happens for a reason at the right time. Okay, that's how you connected. All right.
Yes.
Imagine that you have a successful podcast and today you're interviewing the most special person. No, it's not your daughter. It's yourself. What's the number one piece of advice? Sorry. What's the number one question you want to ask yourself? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Why are you doing what you're doing?
And what is your answer?
Because I want to share and I want to empower other people to be the best they can be.
Would you say this is your mission, your purpose for in this lifetime?
Yes.
Beautiful. Now, the last question that I ask my guests, and that's my favorite question to ask, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done? And by small, I don't mean something small. I mean the one thing that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound, positive impact in both your life and business. For me, for example, Valerie, it's been starting my podcast. What about you?
I'm wondering if you're going to defer that question for me. Right now, I think I'm kind of at a crossroads where I'm opening up to different things. So podcasting is going to be one of them. And I'm kind of excited to see where that's going to go. My goal with podcasting is to give other moms an opportunity to share their story.
Oh, I love that.
Most of us love to share stories. It doesn't matter whether we're moms or not. We all like to, and as you mentioned earlier, we all have a story. We all can share so we can inspire. And so I want to be able to give moms an opportunity to kind of get out of the trenches for a minute and share their story, with the caveat that they have something to inspire another mom on a similar journey, or encourage another mom, or drop some suggestions for another mom.
Beautiful.
So
Love that.
I think that's going to be my big exciting thing, and I'm excited to get started.
Oh, amazing. We'll definitely have to, I can definitely help you with that. We can talk about it after. Now, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Right now, it's through Facebook.
And what is your Facebook?
If you look for Coach Valerie Ann, then you'll find me.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, and don't forget, Ann has an E on the end.
All right. We'll definitely not forget that. I'll put that. You can send me all your links after, and I'll include them in the show notes. Listen, Valerie, absolute honor, pleasure, delight talking to you. Absolutely love your story. And wow, I've been blessed to be speaking with close to 300 people. And this ranks right up among the top, I would say top 10, top 5 most, not just inspiring and empowering, because we all have a story that's empowering and inspiring, but truly goosebump inducing stories. And I'm sure we've only barely scratching the surface. So much more that you can share about your journey, your story, going through what you had to go through. And then in the end, that's been a beautiful gift for you that, strengthen your family, your love, your connection among all of you, and also your connection only between you guys, but also with our, the Lord, so to speak, God, universe, whatever you want to call him. It's beautiful. I'm actually looking forward to part 2. So we'll definitely do that in a few weeks. So I salute you, Valerie. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your presence, with your impact, with your smile, with your purpose, with your mission, with everything you're doing. Stay safe. Stay awesome. God bless you. We're definitely going to be talking very soon again. Take care, my friend. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Very welcome.